You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the December 12th, 2022 meeting of the Long Beach Town Council. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Welcome everybody to the Town of Long Beach Town Council meeting for December 12th of 22. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may have a you want
Okay, now wait a minute, before you do that, show me that.
I think if you click on
Okay,
go
go
up,
here.
go up to where they are. Click on that and hit the mute.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Good. Yep. Okay. Opening remarks. I've got 3 items to add to the agenda. Anybody looking at the agenda?
Thanks.
Under unfinished business after clerk treasurer's salary, let's add council directives to the clerk's office. Under new business, right as the first item, let's put in the HSA. And in the new business after capital plan meeting summary, I want to put in authorization for executive INDOT agreement. Okay. Approval of minutes. Anybody? I'll entertain a motion to approve the town council meeting of November 12th of 22.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, and before we have a motion to approve...
12th or 14th?
14th, I'm sorry, my eyes aren't good. Before we make a motion to approve the executive council meeting, I'd like to ask Mr. Perry, did you prepare those minutes of the executive council meeting of November 17th?
With the assistance of my deputy, Deanna.
Okay, well, they don't reflect what happened at that meeting. I'm going to read the minutes. On November 17th, the town council met and the meeting was called to order at 1 p.m. Details were discussed and alleged...
Are you reading minutes of the executive session?
Yes. That's allowed, right?
I mean, well, the executive session should might for the advertised purposes and for no other purposes, and no decisions were made.
Right. Well, that's not what it says here.
You get to disclose what you'd like to disclose.
Okay,
from
well,
there.
I'm going to read it. Details were discussed and alleged about official misconduct by me, clerk treasurer, and employees in that office. All allegations were without merit, and the meeting was adjourned at 2:30 p.m., and then it states who was at the meeting. I was at that meeting, and that's not what happened. If somebody would like to make a motion to approve those minutes, they certainly can, but I'm not going to vote for them. Mr. Perry, since no one wants to approve those minutes, do you want to re-prepare these? Maybe Chris can help you how to prepare minutes for an executive session? Okay? Okay, so we will save those minutes approval until the next meeting. Is there a motion to approve the special council meeting of November 17th of 2022? Is there a motion? Don't be afraid.
I'll move.
I'll second them. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, committee reports. First off, Police Department, Commission, Town Administrator, Chief Swistek.
Good evening. For the month of November, there was not a police commission meeting. We will hold our next meeting in January of 2023. For the month of November, the Long Beach Police Department responded to 212 calls for service when compared to 118 in the previous year, for an increase of 94 calls for service. During the month of November, 16 incident reports were documented. 12 individuals were arrested, 1 felony arrest for operating while intoxicated with a prior conviction, and 11 additional arrests for misdemeanor offenses. 10 arrests were for traffic-related offenses, 1 public intoxication misdemeanor arrest of a Lake Station, Indiana resident who was discovered staggering in the roadway in the 1800 block of Lakeshore Drive. 5 individuals were arrested for operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated, and we also investigated a school threat via text messaging and a TikTok video that was created by a 14-year-old Long Beach student that was investigated, and the information was shared with the proper authorities and the proper precautions were put in place. Overall, the month was steady. I would like to remind the community that the month of December historically is the Amazon and or FedEx package thefts that we see because of the Christmas holiday. So please be aware of not only your property, your packages, but your surrounding neighbors. I would ask if you see a suspicious person and or vehicle, be our best witness. Give us a vehicle description, license plate would be wonderful. Report it to us immediately. Even if you have a suspicion, please share that. Also, we've had at least 1 vehicle that was entered. The vehicle was left unlocked. The resident's purse was taken from the vehicle and was later found a short distance from that vehicle. So again, I cannot emphasize enough, we need to keep our vehicles locked and keep valuables out of our vehicles, because we still have individuals that come through our community and like to find easy targets. Aside from that, on the town administrator side, leaf pickup concluded on December 2nd. Superintendent Dolph and myself had made a survey of the town. We still found about 11 additional piles that were out in the town. We reached out to our vendor, Dan Healy from Healy's Landscaping, and he was so generous enough to come back last Thursday for about 2 hours at no cost to the town and went around with the vac machine and picked up the remaining 11 piles. Aside from that, we had the normal complaints that, the leaves weren't being picked up from a few residents soon enough, but overall it was very productive and went very well for us. And that is all that I have.
Great. Any questions?
I'd just make one quick comment. In terms of public safety with the leaf situation, it's very difficult to enforce it, but in my neighborhood at least, there were a couple of contractors that basically took a whole lane with the leaf piles. I don't know what we can do. I don't want to see our police department spending a lot of time on superfluous things, but when they get to be that egregious, I think we need to kind of think about that for fall. I don't know what to do, whether we, try to license those guys or how we proceed. But when you come over the hill at Oriole near John Carney's house, one of those 11 piles was actually taken half of a lane at least at that final pickup. But other times, I know the guy 2 doors down from me, the Walsh house, was literally taking a whole lane with their piles. So I think we need, and when you're coming over a hill and you got that situation, it's pretty dangerous. Somebody's going to veer, and then we're going to have a problem. So I'm not suggesting anything other than we just think about it for next time.
No, and great point. We did, personally, I know I called about a half a dozen residents, had to have the conversation with them about the location they were staging their piles at. And then Deanna did an exceptional job reaching out to the contractors here registered with the town, notifying them as issues, and but definitely keep it in mind for next year.
Great. Volunteer Fire Department, Tom Yemk.
Thank you very much. For the month of November, year-to-date fire calls have been 146 versus 163 a year ago. They break down as follows. We had 56 fire calls year-to-date versus 42, and 90 medical calls versus 121 a year before. I'm going to note the month of November was one of our most busiest months ever. We responded to 25 calls during the month of November, so they were evenly split between medical and fire calls. During the month, we had 2 structure fires. I spoke at the last meeting about the mutual aid fire out in support of Springfield Township and Michiana. We also had a structure fire over the Thanksgiving weekend, and fortunately, we were able to respond very quickly. I actually want to call out a member of the town council who was first on the scene and had a big hand in putting that fire out. In fact, the fire over Thanksgiving, the knockdown was within less than 10 minutes. So we're very happy that we had a lot of people showing up during Thanksgiving weekend. We typically on a fire call are still running about 8 members that show up on our basic fire calls, medical calls showing 5 people. The average response time for fire call is 4.5 minutes. Average response time on a medical call is 4.3 minutes. We have donated, we try to track the hours that our members donate. We've donated almost 4,000 hours to the community of Long Beach this fiscal year. I won't put a dollar figure on it, but it is 4,000 hours of unpaid labor. So a few things just to note. You may have noticed the ice rink is now available. It's not icy, it's not frozen, but I want to thank Bart DeLabar for spearheading the ice rink again. We look forward to a good season once it gets cold, which I believe will happen in another week or so. The new rescue vehicle that you all approved a few months ago, if you happen to come in through the parking lot, it is parked outside. We do now have the logo and lettering on there. It actually looks very nice. Now shows Long Beach Fire Rescue. It's done very well. We are still waiting on lights, sirens, and radios. We have 3 bids that have been put out. We're evaluating those bids right now based upon supply chain issues, the ability of a company to be able to deliver and allow us to get this done as quickly as possible. So we expect to have a decision on that very quickly. And once we get that taken care of, then we will get the Suburban into the sales pipeline. We'll work with you, Chief, on putting that in the process. One other call just to note, we've had about 5 calls, I think, in the early part of December. We did have an interesting call the other night regarding elevators. We were called to the Long Beach Country Club for an employee stuck in the elevator. And it's not the first time we've had elevator issues. So just to call out that this fire department does a lot more than just go to medical calls, go to fire calls. We actually go to interesting calls like that. So just for your knowledge. That is all I have for the fire report. I think we're on to the Fire Commission report, John.
I'd like to beg the council's permission to accelerate a couple of items on the agenda. Carl Sender has graciously come to attend our meeting this evening. We have 2 items on the agenda that are farther down that I'd like to move up if possible, if without objection. I'll start off with the Fire Commission met on the December 6th typical meeting date. Mr. Johnstone, Mr. Coker, and the fire officers and myself were in attendance. We discussed the emergency vehicle, the new emergency vehicle that Tom referred to, the rescue vehicle that the council was kind enough to provide for us, which we're grateful for. We also talked about the potential purchase for the new fire truck, which we've been discussing for quite a while, as well as the new public safety building that we also have been discussing for quite a while. I'd like to delve into a little bit of detail and then have Carl help us a little bit with affordability on those last 2 items, meaning the truck and the public safety building. The truck itself, as we've been talking, the fire truck replacement, we now know that that's a $825,000 piece of equipment. It was somewhere in the neighborhood of $750 3 or 4 months back. They're telling us it's going to go up an additional 7% in January, and by the fall could potentially be $1 million piece. So there are obvious incentives to move along as quickly as possible with that purchase. In terms of affordability, we made a presentation in terms of the need for the truck. We made the presentation to the council, I think, last meeting, and we've been talking about it again for decades, essentially. So the need, I think, is there. I think we all recognize that. The the old truck is long of tooth and starting to cost us a lot of money, and it is not quite as reliable as it once was. In terms of affordability, we established with the capital working group, a group of individuals that Mike refers to as well. We've been meeting to look at the entire town's capital requirements, and one of those is the fire truck. We also met with the Budget and Finance Committee meeting last week and discussed at considerable length the affordability, and I think Carl can help me out a little bit with that. He came to us with a amortization schedule projecting what that potential cost would be on an annual basis if we pulled the trigger on that truck. I will caution that that's an 18 to 24 month delivery on that vehicle, and it's also, there is no down payment per se. So in terms of financing, we would have quite a bit of time if we pulled the trigger tonight, which we're trying to accomplish. We'd like that to happen. We can order it under the terms of the proposal that you all got by email. Under that proposal with the 825, we'd be able to order it and then not have to pay for it until delivery. We've been discussing at the suggestion of one of the Fire Commission members, we've been discussing whether the fire department themselves does do some independent fundraising. We would be willing to commit some dollars to that. And I think, you know, essentially with our fundraising, we'd have basically a year or two to accumulate some additional dollars. But I think we could make a commitment somewhere north of $50,000 to the truck with fundraising from the fire department. So I wanted that to be part of our discussion as well. Carl, you mentioned two methods of financing. I think we talked about a bank note for the size of this expenditure, and then also potentially, if that was not favorable term, then we would go with something from the Indiana Bond Bank. You want to just touch on that briefly?
Yeah, so for fire truck purchase, at the under $25,000, I think that would be over 10 years. We could either solicit quotes, local banks, or we could participate in the Indiana Bond Bank program. They have 5 or 6 pre-qualified lenders, and it's a pretty quick turnaround for when you want the financing to participate in that program. And when we get the quotes back from them, we go with the lowest provider. So either option is fine to go with, but I envision it to be over a 10-year period, and it to be paid for existing revenues that we projected, in conjunction with Ken's office, out of your capital plan financing.
So I guess at this point, if there are any questions, or otherwise I'll make a motion to approve the purchase.
Yeah, so Carl, you sent out a couple of attachments today about property tax impact for selected homeowners.
That's for the fire station remodeling project, not the fire truck.
Got it, okay. I'll save my question.
We do have the amortization schedule for the truck itself. That was passed out, I believe, if not at the last council meeting, it was at the last budget and finance. So if anybody would like to see that, I've got it right here. It shows the annual expenditure. If anybody would like to see that, it's right here. I think everybody got a copy. If you didn't, you're certainly welcome to take a look.
John can't make that motion.
That's true, you can't make the motion, but I'll make the motion.
Well, let's address that issue in anticipation that is going to come up. So John has tended to recuse himself of most decisions regarding this fire station. However, the only statutory restraint on his input is on the budget. So he can participate in decisions with regard to the truck, to the station, and he is not. The other threshold is whether he has a conflict of interest in terms of benefiting financially. And under the state law, as my interpretation of the town policy, which mirrors state law, as long as he's not personally benefiting, his personal economic position is not benefiting from any such decision, he can participate. It's up to him whether he recuses himself or not. That's a whole different ballgame. Whether he could, should, etc. That's not up to me. But the law, the only statutory constraint is that he cannot vote on the budget or tax levies. That's it.
And so, Chris, you're talking about anticipatory budget, not spending money.
Making the budget, not spending money. Not the contract, as long as he's not benefiting, his family's not benefiting, having a pecuniary interest, his economic position increasing. My opinion is, and because I was asked, I looked into it, is that he's not constrained. In the past, he has recused himself of some decisions, but he is not required to, in my opinion.
Okay. So, John, do you want to recuse yourself, or would you prefer not to?
I prefer to reserve my right to vote. If somebody else wants to make the motion, that's fine. Otherwise, I will. But essentially, at this point, if we wait past the first of the year, we're going to incur that 7% if we were to make that decision early in the first quarter. If we wait until fall, obviously, it's going up again. So there's monetary considerations, and every day that we wait, that old truck potentially has more risk for the town in terms of maintenance and reliability issues when we're out there at 3 in the morning doing these crazy things that we do voluntarily.
Okay.
The only other thing I feel incumbent, everybody is aware, but my law partner is also part of the fire department. I don't think that affects what we're doing. That has been disclosed since day one, but it feels incumbent upon me to remind everybody, just in case that question comes up, because it has and it will.
The only other comment I would make is this is a purchase by the town. That's another reason why I think that veil doesn't need to be breached, because this is a town, it's a piece of equipment no different than a plow or a police car or a water truck or a water tank or anything else in terms of relationships of individuals. So this is just a piece of equipment that the town, who provides services to the community, is asked for essentially. But I'm going to touch on one last thing. Contractually, and Mike knows about this because he was involved in the contract negotiations with the fire department. Contractually, the town has an obligation, subject to affordability, to provide equipment and facilities for the fire department's use in their duties. So I just want to point that out.
Okay, so I made a motion. I'm sorry, I don't remember. Was there a second?
Well, you got to get a second, then
Yeah.
we'll discuss it.
Yeah. Was there a second? No second.
I didn't second it, no.
Yeah. Does anybody?
Who made the motion?
I made the
You made the
motion
motion?
because.
I'll second the motion. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
thought you were going on my motion. I'll second the motion.
Okay. Now discussion.
Yeah, so this is basically going to cost about $100,000 a year to amortize the truck, principal and interest. Mike can probably, where does that come out of? Our capital funds, or is this additional $100,000 that we normally don't spend? Or what? I mean, how is this money coming forth?
Well, not unlike any other expenditure the town makes, the town has a responsibility to fund certain things. Where we get the money from, we spend countless hours at the the Budget and Finance Committee, and as Tim does as well, deciding which fund that comes out of. So, I mean, that's kind of a decision I don't know if the council directly makes those decisions. I mean, we probably could be more involved in those decisions, but that's where those monies come from is basically up to the clerk and the council. I don't know if I
just want to make
answered
sure
your
we
question.
have the money to pay for Bob, that's all. I mean, is it an extra, Carl, I mean, is this an extra 100,000, or is it just general money we spend throughout the...
The capital plan was presented at last week's Budget and Finance Committee, and it's small. I don't know if you recall seeing the plan, but we have both seeded funds, we have the local option income tax from public safety, there's also CCD fund. Those are probably the principal funds that will fund a lot of the town's capital expenditures. And also there's some room in there to also help pay for some of the debt service. If the town were to move forward on the next item, which is to move forward with bonds on the fire station remodeling project. There'll be interest only in those early years, so that capital plan lays out.
I'm sure she did the motions on that.
Capital plan funds come from. I can't say specifically which fund, but there was a summary that shows how much each year is coming from CCD, from CEDA, from the local option income tax fund, and it more than funds all of the projects that have been presented to the Budget and Finance Committee at this point.
Okay.
I think this got sent to everybody if you didn't see it. Yeah.
So Carl, I do have a comment, and I made the same one at Budget and Finance. What about the outstanding bill that we have with presumably Michigan City Sanitary District? Is that included in there, the 500,000 and more?
Don't believe that has been included at this time.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? Let's take a hand vote. All in favor, raise their hand. All opposed, raise their hand. So it was unanimous, 5-0 in favor.
No, you had one.
4-1.
I'm sorry, who voted against? Okay. All right. So that's it for that issue. Anything else to
Well, the only other thing
there?
would be if we wanted to, in the interest of moving Carl through.
I think we should.
The next item that I would like to entertain is farther down on the agenda, I'm sorry. Essentially, what we're talking about now would be the public safety building, which we've been discussed in prior months. It's been referred to as the fire station, but essentially, it's a multi-use structure. Again, in terms of the need, we've discussed this at length in many meetings over the years. It's been proposed for decades, but essentially the roof on the current building is shot. I anticipate if we don't do anything for the new building in short order, we've got buckets over in the station right now that are collecting rainwater. In fact, we had to move our logbook away because it's leaking so bad over there. The office has leaks in it as well. That roof has been repaired over the years, over the decades, and there's rot underneath there. Some of the structure, I would guess that if we were to try to do a repair on that building with the roof and the structure that's in peril, I think you're probably looking at well over multiples, at least a six-figure repair on that roof. The size is woefully inadequate. Our newer equipment does not fit in there properly. In fact, our new rescue vehicle will not fit in there. And if we were to buy that, well, now that you've authorized the new truck, that new truck will just barely squeeze in there. We currently have 2 pipe bollards that are keeping our engine 2 from smashing into our brand new air compressor for our SCBA. So we are 5 pounds in a 2-pound proverbial bag right now. The doors are inadequate, and then backing in and out the way we have to right now with this longer equipment that we need to have based on NFPA requirements is just a nightmare. Maintenance is very difficult. We're constantly hitting our heads. You can't get up and down into that station. The headroom is woefully inadequate. If we ever had an OSHA or a safety inspection in there, we'd be in severe trouble. We are very, very inadequate. Gear storage, as you all have heard us talk over the years, we are supposed to be, actually most departments have 2 sets of gear, and then they rotate them because of the cancer agents that come by virtue of fighting fires. We barely have enough to store 4 or 5 individuals' gear right now, and we certainly couldn't store the rest of the department's gear in there. We've purchased a washing machine in order to try to facilitate some of that anti-cancer effort, and we have no drying capability. So when somebody washes their gear that's out of service for sometimes days, it takes that long to dry. We also have, the police storage right now is woefully inadequate as well. Mark's got some squads sitting over there in that old brick building. Very difficult to get in and out, or we can't get at some of the things in the forward portion of that building. And then our fire storage is very inadequate in terms of records and all the other things we need to keep track of. In terms of a solution, we were very fortunate. Doug Wickstrom is in attendance. He's an architect by trade, a very accomplished individual who's helped us all through the process of the design build. You are all aware of this, I know. So our solution was this new station. We looked at remodeling the old one and determined in very short order after contacting the contractors that it would make no sense at all in terms of try to keep that old building. So we came with a much cheaper solution, which is knocking down the old one and making the new one. We did, however, get a very nice presentation from our chosen design build firm. They're going to change the configuration such that the town will gain some wonderful space in between the 2 buildings, and it'll be a nice aesthetic break, and we'll also have the ability to keep our trucks in that station longer so that when we get the building up, we'll be able to move into it quickly, which is a very big plus for us in terms of schedule and the way the thing will go down. So again, this is a multi-use building. The police will have storage for no less than 2 squads plus the gear that's in that small building. So they're going to have about 20 some odd feet by 80 feet, which is considerably larger than what they have now. In addition, the wash bay, we have 4 bays on what will now be the west side based on this configuration that will accommodate all of our trucks, all of our gear, our emergency vehicle, and Mark's wash bay, or all of our wash bays essentially, and some additional storage for the police and fire. In addition, the meeting room that we're proposing will have a classroom functionality, and it will be available for the town for meetings such as this. If this was inadequate, we can move over there, and also for classroom for other uses. The construction method we all were aware of, we've been talking about this all year, is the design build concept. It's a code, it's codified by the state and approved by the council when we all took a look at this earlier in the year. We also distilled that down to a 2-phase process. We got the first early numbers in, gave the budget numbers to the Fire Commission and the Budget and Finance. We now have phase 2 numbers, which is a 30% completion. Our design build team that we selected is Holiday Construction. They are a very competent outfit. We had 6 companies, no less than 6 companies at the pre-bid, and we wound up with 2 very competent contracting and design firms that submitted to the final submission on the phase 2 submissions, and we're very happy with our choice. The time frame on this building, if we can authorize it in January, or essentially tonight if possible, we will have the building up and running before winter next year, which would be awesome. As you know, In terms of affordability, I'll let Carl talk about that slightly, but what I wanted to say was in terms of making, this may feel like we're pushing a little hard on this decision, but between supply chain issues, what the contractor tells us is things like electrical gear, transformers, some of the more significant HVAC components, some of those things are stretched out for months at a crack, maybe even 18 months. So there may be some issues with those, but the longer we wait, the worse that gets. In terms of inflationary impacts, as you all know, waiting will incur additional costs from inflation. Carl, do you want to touch base on affordability slightly for us?
Sure. I did present 3 different options to the Budget and Finance Committee. It basically a 10-year, it's almost like 11 years, 10 and a half. We get a 15 and a half year and 20 and a half year financing. And the recommendation that I kind of came up with using very conservative assessed value growth of 3% per year would be to use the 15 and a half year financing. It would cause your tax rate to increase by a little over 0.5%, 0.0065 per 100 assessed value. And as I said before, this would be payable over 15 and a half years. The first 3 years would be interest only, because what I'm proposing is we wrap the debt service payment around our existing GO bonds that we issued back in 2000. And once those are fully paid off, then we would amortize principal and interest over the remaining 16, 17 years. And in those early years, I would, in consultation with the Budget and Finance Committee, when we were putting the capital plan together, we have new revenues coming in, the local option income tax for public safety. That's about $263,000 a year. I think we factored in, again, depending which financing option, to cover the interest only, which is, going to be around $115,000 for those early years. Then in 2027, it would be fully amortized once the full amount of the debt service payment once the 2000 general obligation bonds are paid off. So it's a slight increase if we assume our projections of a 3% assessed value growth, and that seems to be very conservative, at least in my opinion, for what we've been seeing in the last 4 or 5 years. I also, at the request of the committee, sent around what would be the impact at that 0.5% or 0.55 increase per $100 of assessed value. And the cutoff point really for Long Beach residents, homeowners with a homestead, is around $198,000. If your home is market value, that and above, there would be no impact to any of the homeowners because you're already at the tax cap, at the 1% tax cap. So below that, so for someone that's at $150,000 market value, it's only around $4.24 annual increase a year. So that 0.5% increase in the tax rate isn't going to produce a whole lot. And so, depending what your assessed value is, but I think for the majority of people and homeowners in Long Beach, there would really be no impact. So, happy to answer any questions or kind of a quick overview of the finance.
What would be the impact for the non-resident? Because they're probably, I don't know, half the people, homeowners out here don't live here full time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did not look at that. I would assume, again, what's going to be their average assessed value. I could put together a quick table for the non-homeowners because they're not going to get the homestead deduction. But again, if they were to take their gross assessed value at 1%, my guess is, again, most of them are probably about $200,000.
Well, you can't. I don't think you can buy a house in Long Beach for $250,000, can you? I mean, your $400,000, $500,000 would be the bottom line.
I'm assuming there would be no impact for the majority of the non-residents.
Any other questions for Carl? Again, we're just
Yeah,
trying to...
Carl, could you explain the maximum that we can raise via bonds and how that's computed?
Yeah, so there's two financing methods that were really proposed here. The first is probably the simpler method, and that was if the town were to issue general obligation bonds. And that would probably be the quickest way to move forward. At about 90 days from whenever the town makes the decision to move forward, we could have maybe financing in place, but some of it's going to depend on the design build team when they're going to have the final numbers. So really 90 days from maybe when we have final numbers. But there is a constitutional debt limit, and that is you take 1/3 of the town's assessed value times 2%. That would be about $3,742,000. We have, as of January 1, we'll have our general obligation bonds outstanding of $805,000. Subtract that from it, we have availability to issue general obligation bonds of around $2,937,000. So if the bonds here are 2.5 or slightly more, you're going to be eating into a good portion of that general obligation borrowing constitutional debt limit. The other option is to do what's called a building corporation, do a lease of the new facility to the town, or from the town to the building corporation. You form a nonprofit building corporation. This is what you see majority of school districts in the state of Indiana, because there's no way to do renovations or build a new school that for a lot of the smaller rural areas that are under the 2% 1/3 constitutional debt limit. So there is a provision to form a municipal nonprofit, and they own the building, they pay the debt service, but they enter into a lease, and this is a way to do it without being subject to the constitutional debt limit. It's a very method used very frequently in the state of Indiana. That does have some unique features to it. There'll be some additional meetings, possibly public meetings, so it could extend the period a little bit, but part of it is the town will have to select initial board of directors to this building corporation, and so there's, we'll work with your local attorney to make sure everything is in order to proceed, along with bond counsel to proceed with the financing.
Because
it really wouldn't cost you any more than the general obligation route. Maybe slightly more, but there is a few extra fees, but not a whole lot more.
Because my concern is going to be if we bond this on a GO bond and we run our debt service up to the maximum or close to the maximum, what happens in 5 years when we have an emergency and we have to come up with another $500,000 for shore protection, or this building burns down and we have to build a new one? I mean, what do we do? Because we won't be able to borrow anymore.
Well, if you need a new building, you could at that point form a building corporation at that point. If it's for, I'm trying to think what else would it be for. You typically have been issuing bonds to do road pavings or road improvements. I guess it would almost have to be some type of a judgment against the town or something like that. That might be a situation where you need to borrow. But there could be, you're right, there could be a situation, Mr. Coker, that the town would borrow, and you either have to see if you could form a building corporation that was in the form of a building, or you'd be limited on what you could do for a general obligation bond.
Yeah, it seemed to tie our hands for 15 years, it looks to me like. I mean,
Well, you have to realize too, John, that every year you pay that down. For instance, the GO bond right now is at an amount of $800,000 because we made one $200,000 payment last year.
Right.
So, or this year, I guess. So essentially, every year you pay what we suggest
No, I
here.
understand
In you said 5 years. 5 years, you'd have $1 million paid down, essentially, give or take.
I understand that. I'm just saying, maybe the building corporation is something we ought to look into. I don't know. I'd like to be flexible enough that we'd be able to get money if we need it. That's all. I mean, we definitely need a fire station. I don't know if we need a $3 million fire station, but we need a fire station. There's no question about that, in my opinion.
So,
The question
Carl,
is, how much of a fire station do we need? Or how much can we afford, I guess. That's the question.
Well, yeah, and that's essentially why we brought Carl in and why we've been trying to be as expeditious and efficient as we can. We thought the design-build process would be the most efficient and effective and cost-effective method, and it's turned out to be that. We've gotten some really good numbers in from a really good design-build team, actually 2 good design-build teams, so we've identified the costs pretty succinctly. We can still influence those costs, however, there's the design, continuing the design process in the next couple of months. So we really wouldn't see, in terms of what we need to accomplish in this decision process, once we decide we want to do it, then we get them involved with the financing, we keep the process rolling with the design build team, try to approach 100% drawings, then we can refine the number. We can also make conscious decisions to reduce the number. We can reduce square footage where we can. Again, we're operating with 30% information, so we're not quite there yet. And there is some contingency built into that number. I'm not going to tell you there's 20% contingency built into that number, but they did introduce a contingency. I think it was 3 to 5%. We could put some more contingency on that and then start trying to hammer things down.
So Carl, with the building corporation construct, what happens I assume we pay on that lease forever?
No.
Okay. Sorry, excuse me. The term of the bond would be 15 years. So once the bonds are paid off, the title to the building of the fire station will then transfer to the town.
Right, but you talked about the bond, and then you also talked about the building corporation where we lease it from the corporation, right?
For 15 years.
Correct.
So in 15 years, that lease, so it's sort of a buy-to-own kind of a thing, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
rent.
mechanism, so that
It's like furniture.
Yeah.
Again, just to get around it really acts like the same way with the general obligation bond. It's just that the building corp's going to own it while bonds are outstanding. And once the bonds are paid off, then the title transfers back to the town.
I see. Any other discussion?
Just one couple of quick points, unless somebody has some more, and certainly be open to some more questions. So, again, this is a multi-decade effort. We've been talking about this for years. We went to the capital plan meeting. We've been talking about this with the council as well we authorized such things as the survey work through the council. So this is not a new concept. The Fire Commission's been made aware and has been working very diligently on the process, as well as the budget and finance guys. And it's really the town council's decision at this point. Again, I'm going to remind you one more time about the contractual obligation that we made with the contract. I forget how many years ago that was, Mike, a couple of years ago or so. So the town does have a contractual obligation to provide these things, the equipment and facilities, with the caveat that it has to be affordable. So I don't know who should make. I would like to make a motion that unless there's other further discussion. Is there?
I'd like to hear a comment from Chief Swistick in terms of his use of that structure, the public safety. We continually refer to it as the fire station, but I'd be interested in hearing Mark's thoughts on that topic.
Good evening. As Councilman Wall has outlined, currently we use the dual two-car garage out back that is very outdated. It is currently, last year we had to put some GFI protectors in it, single pane glass. Many of the windows are broken. We do store at least up to 2 vehicles, our ATVs and our police motorcycle within that building. The roof on it probably has just a handful of years left before that roof will need to be replaced on that particular garage. The new facility, I will say I've been kept in 100% communication with the fire department, working with them as far as the needs for the police department. They've been very generous in sharing the information and getting the input from the members of the police department as we design this public safety facility. In the new facility, there will be a much larger larger state-of-the-art garage for us to store not only the equipment aforementioned, but also additional equipment. We're looking at, on tonight's agenda, purchasing a much larger ATV that we do not currently have in our fleet that we will need storage to keep that secure. And then also we will have a much larger wash bay for the police vehicles and our accessory vehicles. We're currently, as Councilman Wall has outlined, we are very cramped in that back building. And then overall, the mezzanine storage and just the overall access to the training room, the possible fitness facility that would be in there, that would be a joint facility, could be used by police and fire. I've been asked by our police personnel in the past, as you know, we work 12-hour shifts. Often our deputies would like to come off of the road for a half hour, 40 minutes, walk on a treadmill, maybe use some free weights while still here in the town in one of our town facilities. And I do agree that would be a benefit to get our deputies out of their vehicles and have a space for them to kind of stretch out and look out for their general fitness. So it would be useful, and I do support the need of the facility.
Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion. I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we go ahead and finance this through the 16-year bond financing option that Carl has given us. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Other discussion?
I do have a comment. At the Budget and Finance meeting, John Coker brought up the fact that this is a huge investment, and we should have a town meeting with our residents to get their feedback or input.
Okay.
Is this something you mean in terms of information exchange, or are we going down the road of wait until we get a referendum, or what are you suggesting here?
I'm asking that a lot of our residents don't know about this, and and it's probably their fault, but I think they would like to know. And I've already had some people call me today, so I think it's important that we put this out to the public like we did at the old school when we talked about the sewers.
So before we vote, we're more than amenable to whatever the council would suggest, whether it's additional information exchange or public forums, or in terms of the group that's been working on this from the Fire Commission, we're more than amenable to whatever suggestions the town council has. The only thing I would caution you on is we don't have the luxury under the current situation with the design build team to push this out months, because if we do that, number one, the inflationary and the supply chain issues come into play, and then number two, scheduling and all pretty much goes away. If we decide to push this much farther forward, we have to realize that impacts the costs and everything. So I wouldn't have any problem at all with some sort of a public forum, if whatever you'd suggest, Mary Lou, we're more than amenable to that. But I think the council itself, no different than when we do the other things we do at our meetings, I think we have to get some indication. We have a design build team who has spent countless hours on this. We have our own in-house people that have spent countless hours on this. I think it's only fair that we give some indication about whether we're going to support this project or not tonight. If you have a reason why you don't have enough information yourself, or there's some other information you need, or other questions you want to pose to the person that's told us that it's affordable, meaning Carl Sender, I think we need to express those this evening. I don't think it's fair just to boot it down the road without a good solid reason for doing it.
Well, here's my position on this is we're asking the community basically tonight committing over $3 million and fire truck in the building. And I don't know if half the community is even aware of that. And if the community wants this, hey, I'm all for it. And we vote for it and all. But and I just think it's.
So are we going to make decisions for capital expenditures based on whether or not a public meeting is in favor of it? So, for instance, if we think about Mark's squads or the plow trucks or the investment we made with the HVC at the community center, or the investment we made with the water tower, or the investment that we're going to make with the water services on Lakeshore Drive. Are we going to have referenda to make those decisions, or are we going to have public meetings to decide whether we're making a responsible decision?
But they were $3 million decisions.
I don't understand what the difference between a $1 million water project is and a $2.5 million fire
When
station.
you're indebted the town to $3 million, I think that needs some disclosure to the folks that we represent. We represent the taxpayers.
Absolutely, and that's why this is a representative government, so that we come together, we make intelligent decisions based on all these criteria. We identify problems, we define the solution to the problems, we investigate affordability, and then we make a decision.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second, and we had a suggestion. Was that a motion?
Yes.
Okay. The problem with the motion is that that motion is pretty much directly contradictory to the original motion.
Okay.
Because if we're going to vote, and what motion was to vote, to have a meeting, you understand what I'm saying? So I think we probably need to vote the original motion up or down first. And then we're ready for another motion if it fails.
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor, raise their hand. All opposed, raise their hand. Okay, and that's 3-2. So the motion fails. Now we're ready for another motion.
Okay. I make a motion that I'm not sure what to call it, but it's like a public forum, that we invite residents, tell them what's going on, educate them, give them a chance to speak like we did when we had the sewer proposal. And then I think, and I'm with John Coker, if that's what they want, I will go for it. And I mean that. I know we need a new building.
So we're going to a public meeting, we're going to ask the public whether they want to do this.
No, we're going to inform the public what we're thinking about doing. Let them know what we're doing. I would support that if you put a time limit on it. Let's have the meeting in the next 2 weeks. I don't want to drag this out for 2 months.
Just call it a workshop.
That's fair. I like that. If we've got a concrete plan with a date certain, I'm with you.
Okay.
I can support that.
Okay.
So what's the motion? Are we refining the motion?
We have a motion to have a workshop, correct?
Correct.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. A workshop in the next 14, 15 days
So that would,
at the community center.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Can we get a date then? So we tighten this up a little bit?
Well,
Or at least suggest that we...
let's vote the motion. So,
Does the motion include John's time frame?
yeah.
Okay.
So all in favor, raise the right hand. All opposed, raise the right hand. Okay, so it passed. Now you want to talk about when?
No, that's good. I mean, as long as John's motion, the motion that I recall is there's a 14-day rough time frame on this thing. So sometime between now and the end of the year, we're going to try to get this
Can I
dog
make
and
a
pony show.
suggestion that maybe you set it around the time that you're going to set your year-end?
That's perfect time.
oh yeah, the year-end meeting.
Good idea.
Yeah.
We still don't have that date yet, right?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, we do?
Okay. Mark said the 27th or the 28th would be the best.
The 26th is a holiday, so
Yeah, I'll be,
That's what I was going to propose.
Okay, so this workshop's going to have to take place over there because I think we can probably anticipate a crowd.
27th or 28th.
hear?
Did we say 27th?
27th.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a time?
What time want to do it? What day of the week is that?
It's a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
We have to have a year-end meeting, but that'll be quick. So how about the year-end meeting at 6:30 and this meeting at 7?
Great.
The 27th.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on. Public Works, Mary Lou.
Public Works did not meet in November, and we will not meet again because it's a holiday. We won't meet until the end of the fourth Monday in January.
Okay, Park Board. Joy. Thank you.
The Park Board, we're winding down for the year, but we met on 11/22. We had a presentation from a representative from Pizzo and Associates, which is a professional natural land and water restoration and management company. There's a resident that contacted them about eradicating the Phragmites at Stop 19. I don't know if you all know, but Phragmites are a very invasive ornamental grass. And it's on the beach next to town property on the east at Stop 19. Tom, and the park board has had landscapers that have tried to remove them, but they always come back because something needs to be planted and maintained in its place. So Pizzo will replant the dune grass and maintain the area. The resident at Stop 19 on the east is interested in working with the town so we can save a little money there. So we're waiting on a proposal for Phragmites eradication at Stop 19, as well as a stand of Phragmites at Stop 24. And replanting of dune grass in the areas with ongoing monitoring and maintenance. I don't know if at Stop 24, removing that stand of Phragmites there, I don't know if that will help with the grant that we have, the existing grant we have with Stop 24, and I know we have to do ongoing maintenance there. So maybe that'll help in that aspect.
Joy, how do you spell that vendor's name? Is it P.I.?
P-I-Z-Z-O.
Okay.
Pizzo and Associates. So, like I said, we've tried to get rid of this stuff before. It's really hard to get rid of, and they will come in and plant dune grass, and then they will continue to monitor it. So we're waiting on a proposal from them for us, as well as the resident at Stop 19. And we'll give you an update on that after we get that. Also, I have an update on Save the Dunes, their Stockwell Woods parcel, which I've given you all this little drawing here. I have one extra if anybody wants. Oh, you like everything, yeah. So this is the area. The parcel now is 42 acres. It originally started with just their 13 acres, and then we donated our parcels to them. So this shows you the entire 42-acre parcel now, and they have had U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the DNR, and Save the Dunes. We had a meeting to review their restoration plan, which is right here. And so there is about, you can see on the picture that the path that everybody usually walks through in Moon Valley is really below their area. But they found a 5-acre area that they would like to do some tree trimming or thinning out of the trees and to restore the oak savanna in that area. And the rest of the 42.9 acres has a lot of invasive species in it, and they would like to hire some contractors to get rid of all the invasive species, which they've listed on the top here. They've asked me just to be the liaison between them and the town, so the town is kept upgraded on what they're doing back there. I did get an email from Katie at Save the Dunes today, and she's stating that. Find it. They have heard back from the contractors, and the cost for the tree thinning and the woody invasive removal is reasonable enough that they're going to move forward with a 2-year treatment agreement for Stockwell, utilizing the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funds. So that's pretty exciting. Save the Dunes will be making a financial match, and there's a small band of us that are volunteers, and we will match with some volunteer hours. So that's it for the park board, if there are any questions.
Great, thanks, Joy. Community Center.
Community Center, I'll give you the highlights of that. We met last Monday. It was brought to the attention of the committee that the utility bills for the community center seemed exceptionally high. Doug usually analyzes those for us. There's been a little slip in us getting the bills for this year, so as it turns out, the bill wasn't exceptionally high. It was normal for this time of year, and we'll have that full analysis before the next meeting. At the YMCA, cameras have been installed at the Y that can be viewed by the Long Beach Police Department. They've installed a key fob system. Fob owners will have access from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. Civic has generously agreed to fund the painting of the hallways, so thank you very much to Civic. Courtyard doors have been installed. Melanie is working on signage for the building, exterior and interior. And we discussed the leases, and we would like to recommend to the council that for the tenants for next year, we would recommend a 5% increase for all tenants who have been here longer than 1 year. That would exclude Pilates and Brenda McKnight from rent increases as they just started this year. And the committee also recommends the elimination of any 3-year leases, and all leases be limited to 1 year. I just want to mention that the park board has offered up a 25% increase in their rent. I just wanted to make a note of that, but if the council would agree with that, maybe you can vote on that tonight on the 5% increase. The Y has already signed their lease, I think, with the increase, and they've gone from a 3-year to a 1-year lease. That's it. Any questions?
I make a motion to approve what Joy has presented to us for the leases.
Okay.
And thank you, Park Board.
And the only thing is on those leases is those were 1-year leases, not 2 years.
That's right, it's right inside if you approve it. So it's a
Okay.
1-year lease with a park board with an option to renew for 3 years.
Okay. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Budget and Finance.
Good evening. On December 7th at 8:30 a.m., we had a Budget and Finance meeting. In attendance were myself, John Wall, Laurel Kaczynski, Mike Johnstone, Chief Swistek, Joe Jogman, and I believe the entire town council was invited to and attended. And then, of course, Carl Sender was there as well. Among other things, we discussed our 2022 budget, our monthly financial reports to the town council, which included cash and balance positions, which are mainly on target. Revenue still coming in between now and the end of the year. We just received some this week. We talked about revenue and expenses, variance to budget. We've allocated labor to some of the other areas where they were using it, so that sort of balanced out where we were having differences in labor distribution, cost distribution. We looked at payroll expenses to date and year over year. We talked about unfinished business, the the Lakeshore Drive Sewer Project, possible engineering fee, and if that will happen, and what we're doing to mitigate it. We looked at 2022 and 2023 CCMG applications. We talked about a firm we hired to obtain grants for us, which we've decided to move on from, but the town is still in need of grants, and we are still looking for ways to get grants to mitigate some of the expenses or help with some of the expenses that we're going to incur moving forward, and hopefully we can find a good grant writer to help us obtain those. We looked at our capital meeting summary, contract reviews. Chief Swistek talked about employee health insurance and waste removal. Public Works accounting. We looked at the water department monthly reports briefly. We still don't have a full handle on the water department accounting. Councilman Wall and I discussed the need for that, and they're looking to do kind of a deep dive into that area between now and the end of the year. We talked about Stop 29 shore protection work that's ongoing. There's Woodruff invoicing that we're faced with paying pretty soon. Carl Sender talked about, as he did tonight, how to pay for the the Public Works building and the new proposed fire truck. And all of that was presented in a way that would make it look like those items are both easily attainable. So I hope that in our public workshop we can explain that to the town and get agreement on that. We looked at Stop 18 and 17 drainage preliminary engineering estimates from Haas. Talked about cash management. We signed the Form 1782, which was sent back to the DLGF to approve our budget that was prepared by my office. for 2023, and that is all done and approved by the town council and accepted by the state. We talked about our banking. We have 4 or 5 accounts, and if we are able to combine those accounts, we will realize somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 of increased revenue to the town based on interest that we can receive on the accounts by combining them and managing them more effectively with the help of our bank. We looked at Civic, our software provider, or we talked about them. We're having them come out and do an analysis of our system, which is a little bit antiquated. We did an update with them this summer, but there's some more modules that they offer, which I think would potentially streamline some of our operations. For example, it would incorporate water into what the town uses currently, and that would help possibly reduce labor costs and make it easier to reconcile things. That was about the gist of it. We ended that, and we had a budget working group meeting like we do every month, and that was more around the fire department, the public works building, and the fire truck. Other than that, that was the gist of the meeting.
Okay, Human Resources, Mary Lou.
Human Resources didn't meet this month. They meet January 5th at 2:30.
Tree Board, Ellen Lynch.
She's here.
The tree board for the last few months has been updating and editing the current Long Beach tree ordinance. Basically what we've done is have made some changes in punctuation, including more precise language and deleting some very ambiguous language that does us no good, so to speak. We're currently, to finish this ordinance, we're currently working on exhibits that will depict what is written in certain sections of the ordinance, as well as we're making up a list of non-invasive trees and plants that would be prohibited from planting, and this will be attached to all of this will be attached to the ordinance. Our other business is that we recently denied a request made by Jane Kroll to cut down a tree in the alley behind 2205 Lakeshore Drive. The vote was 3-1. I have a copy of that for the town council. I made 4 points of why we denied her request, so to speak. So, and a copy of our whole permit system, if you guys would like, if you would like to take a look at it and how we go about making the request. That's been, yeah, that has been, that is something else that we've also updated and made a little more comprehensive and easy to do. So, any questions?
Great.
We're a very small little committee.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks, Ellen. Okay, Building Commission, I'm just going to hit the highlights. We had 2 meetings. November 18th we met. The issue of beach stairs was discussed. A meeting is going to be set up with the homeowners who have what we deem to be illegal beach stairs and hopefully get their questions answered. That date and time for that meeting will be forthcoming. We discussed contractor registrations. The plan is to put a sign up at all the entrances to the town notifying contractors that they need to be registered. If not, they will be fined, and the fines will be more significant than they have been. Included in that, homeowners are going to be fined in addition to the contractors. 2502 Glendale, basically the decision was made that the permit application that we had was not adequate. They need to get us a stake survey, and so that's been a continuing problem with permits that aren't complete. There was some discussion of MS4 requirements. MS4 is an agency in the state that's going to require inspections of most building projects in Long Beach dealing with erosion and pollution issues. It's just going to be another hoop we're going to have to jump through. You know, runoff from oil runoff, things like that. Basically, you just can't let stuff run into the lake. And there's a whole process to it. I'm actually the MS4 coordinator, although Larry Wall is doing most of the work on that, thank goodness. We discussed the Coastal Resiliency Group. That's an organization we've been talking to about getting grants for coastal resiliency to try and protect our beaches and our shoreline. And then we had another meeting on 12/9. And really, at that meeting, most of what got discussed was, again, incomplete permit applications. We really didn't consider any new permits at that time because we didn't have any that were complete. And that was it. Any questions about Building Commission? Otherwise, Board of Zoning Appeals, they did not meet due to vagaries in the calendar. There just was no meeting, but there is a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Oh, has it? Okay, so tomorrow's canceled too. Good to know. I won't have to check on it. Advisory Plan Commission, they met on 11/21/22. It was decided that an ordinance to limit maximum building size will not be pursued at this time. The amended steep slope ordinance was approved unanimously by the commission, effectively enacting that law. Otherwise, next meeting is scheduled for next Monday.
Oh, we don't have one this month?
Next Monday, right?
Oh, next
Monday after this, yeah. Okay. Building permit revenue report.
Building permit revenue report for November 2022, 15 permits totaling $146,827 with revenue of $1,852. 3 electric permits issued totaling $713. Legal expenses totaling $3,256 were paid to Barnes and Thornburg.
So I have a question, Tim. Where's the Chris's gratis?
Some address that.
Oh,
I sent them, but I sent them to the wrong place. So
Okay.
them not getting considered last month is my office's. I changed the normal protocol without thinking myself, and so.
Oh, well, that's all right. It's just like, oh, okay,
Taking
great.
are on it and have since addressed it, so they're
Okay.
all in order. But that's my oversight.
Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
I second it.
You want to make the motion?
Yeah, I can't make it. No, I can't make
You
it.
can't make motion.
I'm the entertainer, not the maker.
I make the motion to approve the building permit and the legal expenses.
I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, unfinished business. MOU/lease agreement between the Park Board and the town of Long Beach. We've already discussed that, right?
The lease agreement, yeah, it was approved.
Yep. Okay, agreement between the town of Long Beach Holdings/Country Club and the town?
I can address that. Chief Swistek has been working with members of the holding company and the country club. Essentially, this is just bringing a culmination to memorializing what's always been around in terms of informal agreement. And so I recently came in to assist just finalizing the license agreement was what we ultimately came up with, and essentially grants the town a license agreement to continue to do what you've done. It just really defines that it's under the town's authority. It's approved. It's in writing. It shows what parts you have the I guess opportunity and permission to use from the holding company, and picking up where Chief Swistek and left off with Mr. Brennan, we've, what I believe, finalized that agreement. So that's before you, just to you're really doing nothing other than accepting that license agreement. And, as we discussed some time ago, just making everybody's rights and obligations clear so that in the future when there's questions, it'll be in writing in the form of this license agreement. In addition, I believe this also helps clear up any insurability issues and allows Chief Swistek, and I don't want to speak for him, but has also run this by the insurance agent to make sure that all of this now defined property is included within coverages for all the activities that the town runs.
And so, Chris, have we received that yet, or is that still pending?
No, it was sent out, and the final version was sent out, I don't know, over the weekend, but the only changes were there was some discrepancy in what the holding company thought that the piece of property was owned in, but otherwise, it simply lays out that the holding company is granting the town a license agreement to use those portions of the property right here in and around the community center for its purposes, and then it includes, as Chief Swistek negotiated with them, to memorialize also use of the fireworks to be coordinated and all, you know, the park, the summer camp and pickleball courts and all of those things. So I believe Mr. Perry has a copy for signature. I could be wrong.
No, I don't. No, we don't. We don't. We haven't seen it.
Did everybody else see it?
I've not seen it.
No, we haven't seen it. It didn't come
Okay.
to my office.
Because I didn't see it.
Next time.
In addition to Chris's comments, once the agreement is signed, I will then follow back up with Michiana Insurance to make sure that Bliss McKnight is aware of the agreement. They will then review it, I would assume, with their underwriters and that, and will get back with us to make sure you know, the proper coverage is granted to the town on those facilities, those grounds.
This was originally, everybody received an email on Monday, November 14th. And the proposed agreement was sent at that time for your consideration to put on the December. So
Why don't we do this, since I don't remember seeing it, and apparently nobody else does, why don't we all take a look at our emails from November 14th, and why don't we make sure that's on the agenda for our end of the year town council meeting, and we can hopefully approve it at that time? Okay, website proposal update?
Back in July, we had met with a local vendor who is a website designer, and we began to look at our options, possibly doing a rebranding, a redesigning of the current Town of Long Beach website. The purpose for that was we were not at the time very pleased with the lack of customer service that we were receiving from our current vendor. I have since then, I have an update to report that in the last 30 days, I have finally gotten some response from them. I've had a Zoom meeting with them. They've been very productive in getting the answers back to me, reference our questions moving forward. Originally, when we met back in July with the new web designer, we were looking at price-wise $3,600 annually for our contract. In addition to that, for them to begin the website design and implementation, an additional $19,800. I would like to propose tonight that we continue working with our current vendor. Our current vendor has assured us that we are not the only ones that have concerns with their customer service and pretty much the features with the website design. So therefore, they are pushing out the second and third quarter of 2023. They are doing a upgrade to all content on all website platforms for all of their customers. That is at no cost to us. The only additional cost is that our annual contract will see an increase, as we have seen with many of our contracts. Currently, we are paying $2,315 per year for the support services and the software that encompasses our website. The new redesigned upgraded content with the same vendor that we have will be approximately $3,300 per year. Therefore, obviously still $300 less than what the new vendor had proposed to us. A couple of things with the updated content is that they will have both an ability to send out alerts to residents or individuals that subscribe for both email and text. So we would have the ability, if a resident or someone else had signed up to our website, to subscribe to both email and text notifications. We could then, they can subscribe to what information they want to receive, either through email or through text. An example of that is when subscribing, there's a series of check boxes. You would check that you want to receive any and all information related to meetings, any and all information related to town newsletters, so you can pick and choose what you want to receive information on. The text option is $500 a year more if we decide to go with the text option. So our $3,300 a year now would go to $3,800 if we decide to take on the text option. In addition to that, I am working with them to try and get them to do our upgrade sooner than the second and third quarter of next year. I may be able to convince them to do that. However, that may come at a slight cost. That cost is roughly $500, I was told. So my proposal tonight is to the council for your consideration is to allow us to stay with our current vendor, at least give it another year. Let's see if we can make some modifications and upgrade our current content. Provide additional administrative rights to Renee Richardson, myself, and I would like to reach out to the clerk's office to have another individual added on the clerk's behalf so that we have some cross-training between Renee and another clerical staff member. And then with that, to allow me to enter into some sort of agreement no greater than $4,000 for next year to include our annual subscription cost to our current website designer. Once I have the finalized contract, which I will work to keep under $4,000 for 2023, I will bring that contract back to the council for final approval and moving into 2023. And I see Clerk Perry has.
Yeah, I just have one quick question, Chief. The last presentation we had from that website developer who was talking to us about their services, they pointed out that they would change our emails and our websites to .gov from .org because it's much more secure, and with .org it's easier to steal our info. .gov it's harder. And I thought that was a really good sales point with those guys. Would our current place be able to do that, or has that been discussed?
That is more of a IT related operation change, so we would have to work with K+, and then K+ would work with us to make those changes. The only relationship that would have to the website is just how we advertise our emails through the website, where we would be changing them, updating them to the new addresses. So that is something that we would need to work with K+ to accomplish that. In addition to that, our current provider for our website will also give us kind of the email cover that, say for instance, your office, if somebody wants to send you an email so you're not getting spam, it'll just have Clerk Treasurer Perry. It'll then have email, will not have your email address on there, but then somebody could click that on and would allow it to go straight to your email. And it kind of gives you some cover so that you're not getting spam emails to your town email.
And we don't currently have that, do we?
We do with the current one. Also, I asked a question about ADA compliance. There is some language out there. Is our website currently ADA compliant? It is. There are stages of ADA compliance. There's kind of entry level, moderate, and then high level. We're kind of in the moderate level. There is a company working with our current vendor that wants to sell us the higher level of ADA compliance. I talked to our current provider. It's not a necessity for us to go to that, because that would be an additional, I believe, $3,600 a year if we were to choose that option. And I'm not recommending that we go with that option. So again, getting back to my original recommendation would be to allow me to enter into negotiations with our current provider for the 2023 contract not to exceed $4,000, and then I'll come back to the council once I'm able to secure a contract.
And Chief, I believe doesn't Meg Collins do most of our work with the current website?
Meg does. Meg does an exceptional job. Meg and I have been communicating in the last couple of weeks about this. She has been very helpful in putting me into contact with the proper representatives at our current vendor. In fact, if it was not for Meg's assistance, I would not have had my Zoom meeting last week. And Meg is very dedicated at what she does, and she would like to kind of surrender some of those responsibilities and give them off to another employee. And we all agreed that she would stay on board until we can get some training to a few other employees.
And she's good with this proposal from this company?
I haven't talked to her about the entire proposal, but she is pleased to hear about the upgraded content, the new features. I will say last week I was given administrative privileges to our website, so I kind of went in, looked at our website on more or less the back side of our website, and I will tell you it is not user-friendly at all. So I am hoping that the new features, the new content, I was assured by our vendor, are much more user-friendly, because I tried to go in and make a few minor changes to our website last week, and it was very difficult. So stay tuned for more updates to come, but I have been told that with some of the new features and that we should be very pleased compared to our current services.
So you're going to keep talking to these folks and with a concrete proposal from them, is that right?
I am, yes,
Okay.
and I'm waiting to hear back from them. I'm assuming with the holidays now, it probably won't be till early January before I'll hear back.
Well, I'd move that we adopt the chief's suggestion, not to exceed $4,000, and give them authority to go forward with this.
I second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Building Commission ordinance regarding amendments to violation fines and fees. I think we approved this last time.
Yeah, that's done, and
We're
that's
done
been
with it, right?
published, and
Okay. So cross that off, it doesn't need to go back. Signing of the ordinance, adoption of an ordinance amending and restating concerning engineering studies, improvements of contoured steep slopes. I believe all we need to do is sign this at the end of the meeting.
yeah, that's a
Already passed,
formality
right?
because the APC accepted your
Okay.
recommendation of changing the word shall to may, and so
Yep.
by virtue of their acceptance,
Okay,
as soon
so
as
we
you
just
sign
sign
it,
it.
it's automatic.
Okay, Public Works ordinance, and that's the amending from 5 to 7 members. So we've got, well, I saw Mike's suggestion. I guess my concern is that his amendment was to say ultimately we would go to from 7 to 5 members, and I guess that's in contradiction to what we have here. So I think this whole thing would have to be reworked if we're going to do that, right?
Couldn't we just say not to exceed 7, so we go down to 3 in one thing?
Sure.
Well, except this ordinance says, oh, you're saying amended.
So you're determining the number, so you have before you the draft.
Yeah.
I kind of like John's way to keep it simple
Yeah, and then if we want to make it smaller, we can have another
Yeah.
amendment.
without having to amend it, so keep it simple.
Is that you have members that you didn't have to remove, right? That
Right.
currently serving. So
Correct.
I think what we were trying to accomplish was to eventually, and there was no timeline on that, move back to a 5-member committee. And the way I wrote it out, just drafted it, was should someone's second term end and/or somebody resigns, then we would gradually reduce that committee back to a 5-member committee rather than maintain 7. That was the suggestion. That was not necessarily something that we have to do, but I believe that was our intent originally, was to go eventually back to 5. And so, quite frankly, an expiration for the second term pushes it out quite a ways. And so the only event that could occur is somebody resigns and we don't replace them at that stage.
So how are we going to put that, how are we going to write that paragraph where it says 7 citizen members?
Did you see the language I sent you, Chris, on that?
Did you?
I did. I think that I think this is getting more complex than what you're saying you intend tonight. So maybe because you have your meeting, I'll work with Mike and get you a draft that's simplified prior to next meeting. Because I think the way that Mr. Coker, if you're all in agreement, I think that the simple way to say is, this board may be up to 7 members. You can choose anything in between, and then we'll figure out based on what you're proposing. Those initial terms is the only question. Does that work for you, Mike?
It does, yes.
Okay. All right, so we'll push that out to the next meeting. Clerk treasurer's salary. Okay, so this is an agenda item that I tried to talk our clerk treasurer out of. However, it's still on the agenda. So therefore, I'm going to give my comments on this issue and my opinions. Presently, our clerk treasurer was foisted upon us by the Republican County Committee upon the retirement of Mr. Defuniak. This is a job that even he admits he's not qualified for, and I would argue he's temperamentally unsuited for. From the start, Mr. Defuniak reported to me that his replacement was spending more time on his cell phone than trying to learn his new job. Since taking office, our new clerk is spending less and less time at the office and has even bragged to Ms. McFadden that according to state statute, even if he spent as little as 1 hour a week at the office, the town would still have to pay him. He seems to equate his appointment with having won the lottery, though now the Powerball jackpot isn't high enough. Paying him more will not help this situation. He has now hired 2 new employees to do his job at a cost of greater than $30,000 so far this year. This is in addition to his salary, which he continues to collect. This town council is well aware of the multiple instances of poor judgment and outright incompetence that have taken place since he's taken over. We've had numerous meetings with the clerk over these issues, and we get excuses and told that things will get better. They're not getting better. I now find out that deposits to the bank are not happening in a timely manner as prescribed by the State Board of Accounts. This has been discussed already and has not improved, and in fact has gotten worse. Also, the town's checking account hasn't been reconciled since April. I'm wondering if we shouldn't ask the State Board of Accounts to check on these violations now rather than wait for our next audit, when who knows how many violations they're going to find and how much trouble the town will be in. The town has been notified of a pending tort claim alleging that our clerk, representing himself as acting in the role of clerk-treasurer of the town of Long Beach, wrote to one of our residents' employers in an effort to get him fired. He alleges that this resident harassed several residents and in fact offered to give them further testimony if they would just contact Timothy Perry's, Town Clerk Treasurer, Long Beach, Indiana. This communication was in no way authorized by the town and in no way falls under the duties or jurisdiction of a clerk treasurer. I personally find this behavior despicable and has exposed the town to liability. Last week in Tampa, Florida, it was reported that the police chief there was caught on body cam trying to use her public office to get out of a traffic ticket. She immediately tendered a resignation and was accepted by the city. Yet here in Long Beach, our clerk treasurer tries to use the influence of his office to get one of our residents fired. This is a resident who he doesn't get along with particularly well, by the way. Thus, he would deprive this resident of an ability to help support his family. Have we received an offer of resignation? No, we haven't. In fact, what we're receiving is a request for a raise. To increase his salary, even 1 cent, in my opinion, would be an affront to all of the other hardworking employees of the town. It would also be an insult to all of our taxpayers, who would, of course, foot the bill for this raise. It should be noted that if we were to vote to increase the salary of the clerk treasurer any time after the 1st of next year, it would not go into effect until 2024. Hopefully by that time we will be able to find a competent clerk treasurer to run for office. That's my comments on this agenda item. I'll open for a motion.
At this time, and most of you know, I have attended meetings over the years, and when the prior clerk treasurer for 10 years, they never gave him an increase. And on the Human Resource Committee, I understand what that means. At this time, even though I have been a supporter of Tim's, I feel that I need to make a motion that we not increase his pay this year.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor, raise the right hand. All opposed, raise the right hand. I'll entertain a motion. I'll make a motion to continue this to next year.
Well, on this issue for the raise, because you need to, as part of your salary ordinance, you need to try to pass it. In past years, it hasn't always necessarily been done, but statutorily, we need to try to pass that and have it in place by the end of the year.
I'll entertain a motion. If we don't get a motion, what's the option?
Well, it stays Nothing gets done on that agenda item.
Are you on?
Nothing gets done on that agenda item, but, you know, I'd certainly encourage you, because I believe that the salary ordinance is a line item, so that you just need to make a decision. If you're inclined, you still have another meeting as well, but if no motion is made on the topic of a raise, then the ordinance as proposed would stand without any increase.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I'd be remiss if I didn't. Well, I categorically disagree with everything you've said, Dr. LeMay, so I'll state that for the record. Secondly, we conducted a salary survey of all the surrounding towns and found out that the average salary for this position, the fair market value for this position, is $50,000. So I came in at 36. I was told when I came in that it would be increased the following year. The budget was reviewed by the town council several times, and the $50,000 was put in the budget. The town council approved the budget with that number in it. The budget was sent to the DLGF. The DLGF accepted the budget with that salary in it. So somehow, either it wasn't, the budget maybe wasn't read by you before you approved it, or something happened between October when you approved the budget and today, but I'm a little bit concerned as to how that change occurred. I know that I've ruffled a few feathers around here, but the fact of the matter is, I think you have to decide, do you want to be angry and further a personal vendetta for the next 12 months, or do you want to move the ball forward and do what's right for the town in order to do many of the things that we've discussed and make sure that we accomplish them in a timely, professional manner before our terms are up? Thank you.
My understanding is being under budget is a good thing. In this particular case, I think it's a very good thing. Okay, so we had a motion, and it was defeated. No new motion was made. So at this point, nothing happens. Things stay where they're at. Okay, next agenda item. Signing of ordinance, adoption of ordinance. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. Next agenda item, council directions to clerk's office. So, I added, that's one of the agenda items added. So, my concern is that we had two new issues that came up. One is that we've got collections and deposits not taking place in a timely manner. I think I mentioned that during my spiel. I would like to make a motion that this council insist that the clerk's office give us timely, and that would be monthly, invoices on when monies were received and when deposits were made, because this money staying here in this office or places unknown between the time it's collected here and goes to the bank is just unacceptable to me and to the State Board of Accounts. We've asked for this in the past. We haven't received it. I think we need to insist that we get that.
Well, could we ask the clerk to explain this discrepancy or what this issue is? Because I just became aware of this recently.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I came aboard, there was about $45,000 in my drawer that I asked about, and I was told, well, we make deposits when it's convenient and we'll put them in the bank soon. And I corrected that, and I believe, I know there's one-off stuff that happens because there's a million things that has to happen in my office, and we are under intense scrutiny with everything we do, from at least 5 people here and probably more, but we communicate regularly with the State Board of Accounts, regularly with the DLGF, and the deposits are being made timely, and I will give you documentation to verify that. There's one in particular that's in my desk right now. I talked to Deanna about that today, and it might be a week or two old, but we had to create another fund in order to allocate that deposit properly, and that fund didn't get created until the last minute, and now it is, and we're prepared to make the $2,300 deposit. So I don't I mean, there's a lot, it's easy to throw around allegations without any fact, but if you want to back that up with fact or come to me with exact things that you're looking for, possibly I would prefer if you put that in an email so that I can reply in a timely manner in due course. But by just blanketly throwing around accusations of things not working properly, I think is a bit irresponsible.
So Tim, are you prepared to tell me now that every deposit we've received over $500 has been deposited in the bank within 24 hours as prescribed by the State Board of Accounts?
As I mentioned, your comments, it would be sent to me in an email form, and I will
So you're
reply
not going to tell me that right now?
Your comments will be sent to me in email, and I will reply in due course.
Okay, well, how about this then, folks? How about the fact that we haven't had any reconciliation with our checking accounts since April? I don't know if any of you guys run your households like that, but I know my wife, who takes care of our finances, doesn't run our house like that. This is not a household. This is a town. So my feeling is we need to insist on these things, because we've asked for them before and we haven't gotten them.
Well, in addition to the unbelievably steep learning curve from everyone in my office, the preparation of the budget, the fixing the current budget that didn't match what was given to the state, the rebalancing of some of the finances with various committees, making the payables proper, making the receivables proper. We did get behind on our reconciliations, and we are working to get them right. The most pressing thing recently was getting the budget passed and submitted in time. And again, no one in my office, myself included, ever did that. And there was taxes to file. Well, certainly, we had to learn how to file state taxes for a town. We spent hours with the DLGF. And then there's our software that doesn't quite work properly because it hasn't been updated in years. So you're welcome, sir, to come to my office at any time and investigate exactly what goes on there, because we are not derelict in our duties, but we are overwhelmed and, frankly, underpaid.
Okay, so I take it nobody wants to make that motion. Go to the next agenda item, second reading of the salary ordinance.
What was your?
I had suggested that we insist on getting this reconciliation and insist on this record of collections and deposits, but nobody made a motion to that effect.
Well, I think it would be prudent if we did, Tim, and I thought last year, I thought Horizon, earlier this year, I thought Horizon Bank was coming in where, especially on the water side, we didn't have to go, we went to the bank every day, that we wouldn't have to because it was like a scanner and it took them. Did that fall through?
No, we have the scanner. Lynn uses the scanner.
Well, does the town side use it?
Yes.
Okay.
Not, possibly not as often as Lynn uses it. There's times when we have larger checks that we'd prefer to bring to the bank.
Well, I think it would be prudent for you, and especially if we get an audit, and the bank recs, to be honest with you, when that person that's supposed to be doing them did the water side for 2 days a week, they didn't do it on that side either. So I mean, that's the way it is, but I think I make a motion that we get a monthly review of what's going on.
Which we have a monthly budget and finance meeting, and we usually touch on topics like that, but again, I'll be happy to
I
make
think
sure
it would
that's
be
on the
helpful
agenda.
for us, and then it builds some confidence.
Yes.
Okay.
Understood.
So I made that motion.
I'll second it. All in favor, raise the right hand. Okay, second reading of the salary ordinance. So we have that before us now. It got passed on first reading at the last meeting. Is there a motion to pass it on second reading?
I make the motion to pass it on the second reading.
Second.
In discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. New business, HSA.
Okay. I want to talk about, and we go back a little bit in history. So the HSA, I contacted 3 of the most senior employees in the town, and one of the concerns about the employees, and I said this last year if you had attended, if any of you were out there, that normally the town in January pays the total HSA for the whole year. Well, a few years back, so one person in 15 years that embezzled money had it and, of course, left town, left the building. And so a lot of the employees have families. They hit their out-of-pocket instantly. And I would like to recommend that we keep giving them a lump sum. They would be willing to sign a form that said if they left within the year, they would reimburse the town instead of paying them quarterly. It might be more easier for the clerk's office if we did it once a year. So that's, my motion is to go back to paying them in January for the HSA.
I would second that.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Community Center painting with Higdon 5K run donation. Who's responsible for that item?
Good evening. As we prepare to move into 2023, we're looking at some continual improvements over at the community center, and we've been very fortunate to receive a generous donation from the Long Beach Civic Association. I'd like to thank Councilwoman McFadden for assisting in making that possible. The grant funding from them, or the generous donation, is $2,800 that Civic has allocated for interior painting of 2 primary hallways, one of the main entryways near the current gymnasium. As I met with the committee members, we've discussed some additional areas that we would like to improve upon while undertaking this project, while we have a painting contractor that is available to begin this in the first quarter of next year. So this July, we received a $1,000 donation from the Higdon Run on the July 4th holiday weekend. In speaking to Kevin Higdon through email, he has asked that we keep the $1,000 donation in the town funds to be used for something worthy to the town for an improvement, specifically in the area of the community center. So I would like to ask that the council allow the Community Center Committee, which Melanie Davis is here tonight with us, to allow them to use that $1,000 in addition to the $2,800 to accomplish this painting project in the first quarter of next year.
How much will the whole project cost?
It's probably going to cost us just under $4,000, about $3,800. I mean, there's more work we could find to probably.
Seems pretty reasonable to me. I mean,
yeah, and there's more work we want to do down the future, but for right now, we're kind of taking it in small chunks. We want to improve the drinking fountains. We want to add 2 of them in the hallways with the water bottle fillers in them, because the ones we currently have are not functioning, and there's some other improvements. But as we look to those in the future, we want to find some revenue sources to help pay for those, rather than coming to the council asking, for those expenditures. And I would like to, as I said, Melanie's here tonight, and to all the members that are on the Community Center Committee, from Joe, Doug, Joy, Melanie, and Larry. What a wonderful group to work with. Their volunteerism, they go above and beyond every week. They're kind of the maintenance people for the building. They make my life, the public works team here in the town, the full-time employees, our job so much easier, because they communicate exceptionally well with my office and with the other town employees, and I'm very grateful to be able to work with them, and I'd like to see this project move forward as they continue to work on future projects.
So do you need a motion?
Are we going to relocate the mural in the men's room? That's really the only thing I'm concerned with.
That takes me back every time I walk in there. It is very scary, and I talked to Chief Sokowski about that. So,
I mean, as a historical note, I mean, shouldn't we relocate it somewhere, or are we just going to paint over it?
I'll hold comment.
Your basement.
But and John, you bring up a great point. I mean, that is one of the future projects is bringing our restroom facilities up to ADA compliant there, along with some of our entryways and that. So, I mean, there's easily a couple $100,000 improvements we could do to that building. So, I'm very grateful again to the Community Center Committee as they move forward with these suggestions. And that Melanie's been working on some wayfinding signage as well. We're going to improve the signage out front of the community center along Oriole Trail to better advertise for our current tenants as well. So yeah, I'm just looking for motion from the town council tonight to allow us to use that $1,000 donation in addition to the Civic's generous donation.
I would make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second, I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good. Okay, Zero Turn Mower from the Street Department.
Yes, Superintendent Dolph has been working on this for the past several months. In 2022, their capital expenditure request was a zero-turn commercial grade mower for our public works team, specifically the street department crew. Superintendent Dolph has found a 2022 model that is still in a crate, still available here at a local dealership. We have compared the quote that he received is $12,500 for that 2022 model. I did find a comparable model that is out there. It also is a 2022 model, the same make, the Super Z 72-inch. That price was $16,437. 2022 models are very sparse right now. I had placed a hold on this one in anticipation of granting permission from the council tonight. We also looked at a 2023 model with supply chain issues. There are no specific ship dates, nor do we know, as indicated, when that would arrive, and the price would be $14,299 for the 2023 model. So therefore, there is a significant savings to the town if we would move forward with the purchase of the 2022 model. And again, comparing to the other model, obviously considerable savings there, but we would save $1,799 if we were to move forward with this request with the local dealer here in LaPorte County, which we have a history of servicing our current power equipment. So my recommendation to the council tonight would allow the street department superintendent Dolph to move forward with securing this piece of equipment for $12,500 coming out of capital funding expenditures.
I would make a motion.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Ordinance pertaining to the police department donation account. We all have that ordinance in front of us. Basically, it's a ordinance to set up a special account for donations to the police department. I would make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Amendments to the golf cart ordinance.
Before we go forward, let's make sure we follow procedure. This is introduced at this meeting, so you need a unanimous vote to suspend your rules and consider and approve it all in the same
Okay,
meeting.
let's all do a hand raise if you're in favor. That was unanimous. I would make a motion to suspend the rules and consider it on second reading. Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor, raise your right hand, left hand, right hand, whatever. Okay, good? All right, good.
Thank you.
Amendment to the golf cart ordinance. So Chief Swistic suggested that it might be a lot easier with our golf cart ordinance to instead of having people register their golf carts every year for $50 to do it every other year for $100. Chief, was there anything more to it than that?
Is there a lifetime one?
No, not a lifetime. However, so we are entering 2023 will be our third year with registering golf carts here in the town. And I'm happy to report that there are minimal complaints or issues that we have with the use of golf carts within our town and on our town's roadways. The Long Beach Country Club, who is a very good partner with us on this, we register about 200 to 225 golf carts per year. Of that, the Country Club registers about 170 to 180 of them, which we do not have to register. Renee Richardson handles our in-house registrations. So we have received input and feedback from the Long Beach Country Club and from residents who have come in to pay for their annual golf cart permit, and they have asked us to consider going from the $50 a year permit to $100 for a 2-year permit. So therefore, the recommendation would be for 2023 to allow us to purchase permits that would say 2023 to 2024 on the permit. We would effectively begin starting January 1, charging $100 for each permit. The country club and I have discussed, well, what if a member from the country club decides to, after 1 year into the 2-year permit, to move out of state or whatever, and they ask for a $50 refund, we would have to cross that bridge when that time comes. So, yeah. So I think it's one of those. I think it's one of those things. We originally, I guess, if we look back at history, we talked about making it $100 per year, and this council was very generous in limiting that to $50 per year. So I think by increasing it to $100 for 2 years, we're not asking of much, and it'd be my recommendation that we make the change to the ordinance to reflect such.
So I make a motion that we ask Chris to amend that ordinance
I
for us.
second it.
I can have it ready for your meeting on the 27th.
That'd be great. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
One quick comment. You might want to add the counter to what you just described about somebody walking away. You might want to have language in there to allow somebody to come in mid-term and only pay the 50 if you.
Part of my suggestion is this. Part of your reason to do this is make it easier process-wise. From personal history, if you go get a health department permit, there's no proration.
Oh, okay.
You get it on the first day of the year, you get it on the last day of the year, you pay the same amount. It's up to you guys if you want to do that, but part of what you're trying to do here is make it simple, right? So,
yeah. And we already made it just $50. So I think we've gone. All right. So I think we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. So Chris will look for that next meeting. Okay. Golf cart revenue to purchase ATV in 2023. Now, Chief, right now the revenue from the golf cart registration goes to general funds, is that right?
No, it may be in the general fund, however, set up in a separate fund showing that the revenue is collected. I believe it is just shy of $20,000 sitting in that account currently. Since the implementation of collecting these permitted fees, we have not utilized any of that revenue. So therefore, that's why I wanted to bring this up for discussion tonight. As the council is aware, this summer we received a generous donation from a Long Beach resident of $10,000 to assist us in purchasing an additional ATV for the police department. My proposal is currently we have 2 ATVs. They are single seat ATVs. I am currently researching a ATV that would be more of a public safety ATV to be used by both police and fire. I want this ATV to be more of a people mover, something that we could put 4 to 6 firefighters, combined firefighters, police on, and or something that we could take off-road, say into a field, onto the beach, or on a road in our community, that if we needed to move people and or emergency responders, we could carry up to 6 personnel on this. I recently found a brand new Honda 2023 ATV that just came out. Honda just released it in October. I went out to the local Honda dealership, looked at it. It is very nice. We could have 6 personnel and or 6 people total on it, but it's a little pricey. It's about $26,000, not to include lighting, graphics, police radio, the things we would need to do. So my proposal is we could utilize the $10,000 donation. Then we would need, in addition to that, approximately another $20,000, maybe $22,000 at best to make the purchase, do the proper outfitting, everything we would need to do. And obviously this piece of equipment would last us for years to come. Our current ATVs are, about 10 years old or more. What I'm asking for is that we would have to find a way to direct the clerk treasurer's office to create a expense revenue line item, allowing us to use these funds that we're bringing in from the golf cart registration fees. So as I stated, we have about 20,000 in there now. If we go to a 2-year permit, in 2023, we're going to bring in close to another 20,000. So there'll be roughly $40,000 in there by middle of next year. But we need to give consideration to A, if the council supports utilizing those funds. I will say we're collecting the revenue. We should justify what the revenue collected is to be used for. This vehicle would also be used for patrolling the beach stops, which we see a lot of our golf cart violations occurring at. And this vehicle would be roadworthy, that it could go and patrol the town, searching out for golf cart violations and or off-road, having to go into Moon Valley, whatever we would need to do. So we need to start to come up with some uses for these funds, and I think this ATV purchase would be a perfect example of how we can start utilizing these funds rather than using capital expenditure funds or general funds from our general budget. So those are my recommendations for consideration for the council to consider.
One comment I'd make from the fire department side, we've had numerous occasions when we've been down on the beach and it's very difficult to get somebody, you know, in particular if there's a trauma type of case where you need to keep somebody on a backboard, and depending on where you are in the town, it's extremely difficult to get a person up out of that area. So I would say the type of vehicle that Chief Swistek's recommending would be a real help for the fire department. We get into medical calls where we have to bring somebody up that's got to be boarded.
And I've also had that discussion with Honda about the possibility of seeing about purchasing an accessory for the back end of this ATV. It has a 4-foot bed. Michigan City, we utilized one where we were able to install a medical backboard to it, and then you could put another backboard on top of that, so if we had a drowning victim or any type of medical emergency on the beach, we could strap an individual to the medical board and move them from the beach to the nearest beach stop to that stairway where an EMS ambulance would be awaiting for us. We can also move, you know, family members with that victim rather than telling them you need to go 2 beach stops down in the heat and meet your family member down there. I was very impressed when I looked at this vehicle. Like I said, you could load 6 people in the vehicle in addition to the 4-foot bed that is hydraulic operated in the back as well. It's 1,000 cc's, much bigger than any unit that we have now, but you're going to need 1,000 cc's to move 6 individuals. So, and before I would make this purchase, obviously I would come back to the council, I would seek input from the fire department, and then come to the council with the proposal to make the final purchase of the piece of equipment. I just want you to consider how we can utilize funds to make this purchase next year with the hopes of having the vehicle ready by Memorial Day weekend of 2023.
Okay, so right now you don't want us to do anything except authorize you to look into it further?
Correct, and then also work with the clerk treasurer's office to find a way to direct them to establish a revenue expense line item so that we can expense money out of the incoming funds to start utilizing the funds for public safety and other related expenses.
Okay. Capital plan meeting summary, did we already deal with all the issues there?
Yeah. Oh, no, well, I'll just make a real brief comment, and Mike, we've been involved with this thing together, and Mark has as well. All I'm going to do is say this is available. It will be, it's a public document. It basically is the culmination of a couple of years worth of work where we contacted all the different departments, came up with what they projected out for a 5-year capital plan. It's a working document. We're going to continue to update it every year, and the idea is that we always are proactive with what we have in terms of capital needs down the road. We've in years past, sometimes it's been more reactive, where all of a sudden we find out we've got to spend a lot of money on something because it went haywire. So this is a very helpful tool. It's been very positive for us. We did make some significant adjustments from the last one that we had. The Parks Department we had down for some capital equipment, and it turns out that was basically just their line items. We did bring, the building we're in, anybody that's familiar with it needs some help, and in terms of HVAC and some of the other things. So between Mark and the rest of us, we decided to jack that one up a little bit. So the current document includes some money to be spent on the town itself, the town building itself, and then we made some adjustments based on the public safety building as well. The bottom half of it has some of Carl Sender, and actually this document was corrected by Carl Sender, who's our municipal financial advisor, and we looked at some of the funding mechanisms, which again, you know, that's not cast in concrete per se, but it does give us the idea of what's affordable and what's not. So this document is available, and it's a working document. We'll continue to make changes in it, but we did have a successful meeting about a week and a half ago and finalized the 2023 capital needs.
Okay. And then one of the new agenda items, authorization for executing NDOT agreement. I think we all have seen that. Basically, this just is a resolution allowing me to sign the agreement with NDOT for the CCMG stuff. Anybody have any questions about that? I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, set the year-end meeting date. We've already done that.
12/27?
Yep. Yeah, 12/27 at 6:30, right?
Correct.
And that's going to be over at the community center. Public comments.
Anita Remiges, 2300 Florimond. Number one, Mr. Perry, I find it ironic that you would say something to Dr. LeMay to move forward from his anger and a personal vendetta when I believe that there's clearly a personal vendetta and anger involved in what led to the entire town council, you and the deputy marshal being not threatened, but that there is pending litigation that Bob referred to, which you said that you categorically denied all the comments, and I believe the documents speak for themselves, and that there have had to be insurance involved and attorneys involved. Number two, I was next door to the house fire, and I saw it at the same time a passerby noticed it, and the fire response was incredible. To that end, I would say, number one, donate. There is a year-end appeal that I get. Number two, volunteer to be a firefighter. Number three, as I mentioned before, support funding of a fire truck in a public safety building. Mr. Coker, you talked about non-residents, and I think non-residents are the ones who need to worry most about their homes. Had I not noticed it, and had not the passerby just seen something while he was looking at my house, it could have been much worse. No one else was home. Mary Lou, I'm not sure, you said that somebody just happened to call you today, and I think there are 13 participants on Zoom, and this has come up for years and years. I've been going to council meetings, I go to budget and finance meetings. This public safety building, which it should be called, it's not just a fire station anymore. This has been on the agenda for years and years. Clerk Perry tonight mentioned that the town is financially healthy and can afford this. I appreciate you want to let people know, but again, you can put a trough of water out there. We have meetings, we have Zoom meetings, people can come to meetings, people can ask questions, and you can't lead the residents to it. And I think that you have to make the decisions that you make every month and in every meetings to spend money. There's a capital plan. I know, Mr. Johnstone, you tout your banking business and your background. And I think that if we have this $1.9 million in an account, Carl Sender has presented different options. We've talked about what will happen to our town bills, and it just seems to me that that this would, I appreciate that you say the residents should know, but the residents should know. They should know. This is not something new. So shame on them, and again, if it was your house and the fire truck doesn't start, believe me, I watched that fire, And if they were not there, that fire would have consumed that house, and my house is next door. So if it's your house and the fire truck is stuck in the station and it can't turn or it won't start, I think that you need to look at the fact that, yes, you're spending a lot of money, but the town seems to have the money, and Carl Sender has been very conservative and very thorough in what he has presented to us. So I hope that you will reconsider on the 27th. Thank you.
Any other public comments from this room?
Bob Boyce, Stop 29. I listened to this and I realized we're going to have a public forum. But I think along with the public forum, we have to know exactly how much money is going to be spent on this building. Now, on Exhibit A, back in May 2021, the fire station, which is now going to be the public safety building, was $900,000 to $1.1 million. Now, as far as I know, it's over $2 million now. Now, if that's the case, and this is a steel building, and it's 10,400 feet, I pulled the plans. That's over $1,900 a square foot. That's almost scandalous. Now, steel buildings don't cost this much, so there's got to be a lot of bells and whistles in here. So my attitude is that if there's a public forum that we have at the community center, you know, we're facing the people, that they be notified by mail, and that we give them 3 options. The fire department should be able to give them 3 options. What they really want, what they're willing to accept, and what won't strap the town. Because there's a lot on here that's frills, and I think that it could be added later. It could be added tastefully later, but I think right now the problem is that financially it's going to put the town in a tight spot if they go ahead with this, because all buildings, and I've been involved in doing a lot of buildings and a lot of structures, they always have cost overruns. Nothing ever comes in as quoted. It always comes in 10% over, 15% over. We've got a change order here. So I'm not so sure that unless we have firm costs on the building and options, that a public forum rushed through like this is going to work. It's going to be a pig in the poke thing. The other thing I was looking at, and this is on Exhibit A, it's from May 2021, and it's the obligations the town has to the fire department. Shows another truck in here, 2029 or before. It's another pumper. And so I figure that truck is going to add by 2029 another $1 million to our debt. Now, nobody's discussed that tonight, but it's in black and white. It's tied to the back of the contract. So there's a lot more in here, if you read this thing, than meets the eye. And finally, and I find it a little uncomfortable, that this is all to accommodate a private corporation. Because the Long Beach Volunteer Fire Department is a private corporation, and they offer services to the town. And they can go out of business tomorrow. And we're going to own all this and have nobody to operate it. Because in reality, the Long Beach Volunteer Fire Department has no assets. They have nothing to bring to the table. So we're dealing with a human resources company that supplies us with manpower. And that's about it. So I think there has to be some guarantees on the other side too. But we'll just see how this
tonight, or how long is this going to go?
We'll just see how long, how this works out. And I suppose going ahead with the public forum, we just have to know our costs. Thank you much.
Thanks, Bob. Any other comments from this room? Any public comments from Zoom? They'd raise their hand.
Okay, I'll link up there.
Yeah. If anybody wants to talk on Zoom, just start talking. Okay, council comments. Oh, go ahead.
Mary O'Neill, 1532 Lakeshore Drive. Unfortunately, I missed early on in the meeting, but I came up with having a public hearing on the 27th is not very good for right around the holidays and everything else. And I just think we really want to have unless it's, will it also be on Zoom so that people can chime in there, or just strictly in person?
I'm assuming it'll be on Zoom.
Okay, but I still think, I mean, and how you're going to get it out to everybody so they know about this. So, I hope we do. Thank you.
Any other comments from Zoom? Yep.
Yeah,
Gotta come up here though. And just introduce yourself.
Bill, all I know is I came here, I voted for you guys, and when we had the election, with the understanding that you're going to run the town. And I think we're micromanaging by having a forum. I think having a workshop, letting people know as a nice gesture to give them all another chance to get caught up on what's going on here is very nice of us, but I think you should pass it and move on. Our police and fire have to have all this stuff. I mean, I can't believe that we would think anything less of giving them what they need. So, and that's why we voted for you guys, and I think it'd be nice to do this, but, you know, Anita, you're right. Everybody has a chance to know everything that's going on here, and if they don't want to, then they can't complain. It's as simple as that. So, that's my... Thank you.
Chris Collins, 2400 Florimond. I just want to bring up the whole thing about the Long Beach Volunteer Fire Department being a private corporation. I think that undersells us as what we do for the community. We spend a lot of time volunteering for this. We don't get paid. Well, you know, we get $200 a year. It hasn't gone up in over 30 years. To think that we would cut and run for something after we get adequate training facilities and adequate fire is kind of roundabout thinking. So I think, I don't know what you want to hold the fire department to, I guess. You know, these are people from the community here to service and protect our community. That's just my two thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Claims approved.
Town checks.
Council comments? I'm sorry. Any council comments?
I just wanted to thank the council for the affirmative on the truck this evening. I appreciate it very much. I know all the rest of the guys do as well.
Now claims approved.
Claims approval. Town checks number 19351 to 19416 totaling $194,888.29. Water department checks numbers 54621 to 54637 totaling $87,717.79. November payroll $71,864.27. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.